The crypto market right now is in one of the craziest positions it's ever been at. And a lot of people are asking me right now, are we buying, are we selling? Do we believe the altcoin season is about to follow? Or do we think it's further away and we should pay close attention to actually selling, to actually getting out of our positions here? Because maybe by Monday, for example, everything's going to be crumbling back down. So let's first off state that right now we are in no way, shape, or form seeing an altcoin season. An altcoin season usually is showcased by most altcoins performing better than Bitcoin, and even though pretty shortly it could actually get to that point, as it stands right now, Bitcoin still has performed better than most of the altcoins in the top 100. And so again, mostly from the moment that this shifts, we consider it to be the altcoin season, but indeed, maybe you already thought about it just now, that means an altcoin season is a lagging indicator because it only starts flashing. It only starts saying, yes, altcoins are doing well once they've been doing well for, well, I guess the past 90 days or so. Because generally speaking, this metric right here measures the last 90 days. There are multiple different websites that do it kind of differently. For example, just 30 days, maybe 7, maybe 14 days. But the fact that Bitcoin is up 40% in this section, and most of the altcoins, really, when you start looking at it, like 70% of the altcoins have not beaten that, it basically means we are not in peak euphoria. Also, when taking a look at, for example, a search term like Bitcoin, and you take a look at it over the past few years, or actually since 2004 till now, you realize, hey, the 2017-2018 run really is where the interest was all the way craziest. In 2021, it got pretty high up there right now, back in the time where XRP and a couple of altcoins popped off. Also, some interest came back in for Bitcoin. It was just before Trump came in hard. But right now, we are basically at nothing, right? You can see the interest in Bitcoin is rather low right here. And the same thing can be said for altcoins. The last time it peaked was in December of 2024. And funnily enough, the same thing can be said for meme coins, which really only started to pop off like for real back in 2024. But even right now, they're not really in a hot spot. And I think another good indicator is actually the how to buy crypto type of question, because that really shows how many new people are trying to get in, or maybe how to get started. Let me quickly type in with crypto, maybe something like that. Just for fun, we could take a look. And this most likely, okay, this is not the best search term. But even other terms like major exchanges like Coinbase, maybe even Binance, let's type it in real quick. Binance, yeah, you can see there's really no new crazy wave of interest whatsoever. Then again, the search terms also are not that crazy, but it's just to kind of point out, right now we're not in a peak euphoria type of moment, because otherwise we'd be basically trending downwards or at peak, especially because this season I think we'll probably see a higher peak than the previous ones, as a lot of people saw crypto back in 2021 but really weren't interested in it too much. But since this time around is going to be pushed by the freaking president of the United States, probably some other countries, and really pushed on major billboards because now there's more rules, so it's more allowed to basically promote it, etc., etc. I think this time around the wave is going to be even bigger than the one we saw in 2017, which the 2021 run wasn't. All right, a lot of people made way more money, but it wasn't really the best of runs. I personally think the 2018-2017 run was more fun, crazier, etc., etc. This run I don't think will be as crazy because, well, there's more rules, there's more eyes watching it, so it'll be less of the degen realm, more of the regulated, proper, a lot of money type of pushes. But on the opposite side, again, we've now got key figures. The richest people in the world are all trying to push this. The most influential people in the world are. The fact that the stock market's pushing so hard, if you combine all these things, it just makes sense. And what makes sense, you might ask? Well, I basically think that right here, we are going to be seeing a moment where altcoins, this is the chart that just shows Bitcoin and ETH excluded from the total market cap, so just all the altcoins basically, where it's going to break out and start going crazy. Over the past couple of months, it's been trending downwards. So since you can see here, about May of 2025, but really all the way back since December of 2024, the interest has been fading. And right now, over the past 3 weeks or so, we've started to make a little bit of a dent, a little bit of a recovery in that market cap. But really, when you start zooming out over the past few years, since basically where Bitcoin bottomed out, altcoins also bottomed out, and they've slowly but surely been going up. But the thing is, in this time span, so many new altcoins came around, and that basically means this has been diluted by more altcoins, meaning your old altcoins didn't necessarily go up as much, because you can see it went up about 220%, but many altcoins did not even perform that way from the bottom. Then again, I think most altcoins did. But what I'm trying to say is, really, the fact that most of the altcoins are not at an all-time high can also be explained by the fact that we still have not even beaten the 2021 highs in terms of total altcoins, even though right now, there's probably an additional 20 million altcoins because of all the new memes, etc. So to get some conclusions going here, it's just quickly refreshing, but to get some conclusions going, the reason I'm keeping my XRP trade open, my $800,000 XRP trade here, even though it's at $120,000 worth of profit, why am I not getting rid of it? Why am I not moving out? Well, the main reason is because I still think the probability of us moving up from here and going crazy is higher than for us to start trending downwards again. And even if on the short term, this turns out to not be the case, we actually make another move downwards, I also, as it currently stands, have my bot strategy set up where every single time the market moves down, these things buy so freaking hard that every single time it moves back up, we make a ton of profit. And to show you guys how that works, just quickly open one bot right here. You can see, right, this is basically the process, how the profit has been looking throughout, right? Here's what the transactions look like. Every single time the price goes down, every single half a cent it goes down lower, it just buys. And if we look at the transaction history, for example, you can see it obviously makes a lot of transactions every single day, but the core principle being that it can just get itself a way better position in the market, again, doing nothing. And with the profits I make from that, I theoretically speaking could fuel this one. And I don't necessarily mean that I fuel it by buying more, which I also do every single time we go down lower. But I mostly fuel in the sense mean I could pay for the funding, I could pay for just keeping it open basically for a prolonged period of time, because I still believe that following my previously stated logic, the S&P will continue to move upwards, so the strategy applies there, meaning if you just always buy, it doesn't matter whenever you start, you just keep buying your way down, you always end up in a good position. And I think the same thing can be said for the Bitcoin/crypto market. Sometimes I say Bitcoin, but realize I always say that because I think Bitcoin goes first and altcoins follow. You see this little squabbly thing that I made right here? I made this squabbly thing more than 2 years ago, all right? I put this in the chart, I believe, all the way back in like maybe December of 2023. This is one of my older charts that I've still got open. It could be that it was actually in 2022 as well that I was putting this, but I think it was somewhere here around the October of 2023 mark. Why? Well, because first of all, I see that that's where I stopped drawing my line, and it would not be logical for me to draw it kind of like away from this thing. As you can see right here, it's away from it, which is kind of strange. So I'm thinking I probably put it in like right around this level, generate. Also because I put a projection here and made a squabbly line that's not correct. And you can see this line right here, it doesn't make a lot of sense for this line to be placed that way after the fact, only before. And the funny thing is, really, when you start breaking it down, the crypto market throughout its entire history has been so predictable, right? It's a 4-year cycle. We know for the most part, really, when it's going up. And again, looking back at it, it was pretty obvious here in November of 2022 that this was the low and that we were going to start slowly but surely trending upwards. And again, we were going to bounce off of the moving average time and time again. We didn't know how many times, but all we knew is, generally speaking, the direction is upwards. And I kind of expected it to be slightly faster, as our strategy initially back in 2022 was that 2025 we were going to start selling at the start of the year. That would have worked because we did peak just slightly before that, but then later on it turned into a, hey, the president is joining, things are getting a bit crazier but delayed, let's do it the second half of 2025, which is basically August of 2025 till about January 2026. We're just selling every single time you see a crazy amount of profit is good, but that basically starts as the trends start to pick up. So again, once you see some of these trends like crypto, right? Let me just quickly type it in again. Once you see trends like crypto start to finally make a move back upwards, it doesn't even have to be a peak, right? But once you start seeing it make some sort of move back upwards, and a strong move I'm talking about, right now we're seeing nothing. Nobody outside, if you walk outside right now, is talking about these coins. Nobody is excited. Yet we saw a good pump. That leads me to believe the craziest is not in yet, and I still believe the cyclical nature of crypto will continue, and that altcoins here will perform better than Bitcoin will, and that even though we were not able to get over certain resistances for many coins, with the way I've set myself up, I've got some juicy positions in some of these altcoins, and I made a video yesterday saying, hey, if you want to sell here because you're seeing profit you've never seen in your life, right? You're killing it, do it. because every single choice you make will leave you with regrets. I've told you before, I always regret it the most that I didn't put more money in when things were in a good spot. And I don't really mind seeing my P&L go from plus 200,000 to minus 100,000, whatever. Because again, I know eventually, pretty soon, within a few month time span, it'll probably be plus 750,000, plus 800, plus 900. And the only thing I got to do is just not get wrecked and not give up. That's my thoughts, right? But at the same time, I've also got, in my opinion, pretty foolproof strategies with these bots. You can see I opened this 60 days ago. We doubled our money with this. And this is like, in theory, this long right here, right? We more than doubled our money in a shorter amount of time, because this has just been like 3 or 4 days that we made $120,000 with $80,000, right? It's an 800K trade. But the thing is, this, if it goes the other direction, you really start hating yourself. With the bots I've got over on 𝗲𝗠𝗀𝗧, the nice thing is, even if it does go against you, it tends to work out quite nicely. For example, this excellent bot, it was always at a loss ever since I opened it up. Let me show you, right? But I just only bought the dip once on it, and all of a sudden, it's the best performing bot I've got. Like, here's a full list of all my bots. 𝗬𝗏 is the #1, even though I didn't expect it at all, but that's because the bot just knows how to work its freaking magic, man. Then again, this grid APR, if you're wondering what this is all about, this is just, if you do not look at the overall position, that's just what it's been able to cash out in like the last 60 days from just buying and selling. For Altcoin, for example, in just 2 months, it's been able to generate me a 20% return, and that's beside the position itself going up. Anyway, if you want to join one of those, like for example, 𝗲𝗠𝗀𝗧 for the bots or 𝗲𝗏𝗀 for my normal trading, I've got a link to 𝗲𝗏𝗀 down below right here, and a link to 𝗲𝗠𝗀𝗧 right here. Just click the first link to sign up, and then perhaps the second link to claim yourself a bonus if you want. On both of them, the bonus is pretty good. Here you can see at 5K deposit, you get $800 for free, which is, pretty good return instantly. And the same thing applies on 𝗲𝗏𝗀. I think you get about a 15% return or so as a starting bonus. I always recommend you to get bonuses whenever you can because it's free money. Worst case, you just swap it a few times to generate that. Usually there's a clause that says, hey, you got to flip it like once or twice to be able to unlock it, to be able to withdraw it. If you really just want to get some free money, you can also do that. But of course, I'm not a financial advisor. These are just my thoughts and my trades. Funny thing though, I'm looking at some of these positions and I find it kind of funny how I'm sometimes adding to them. Like for example, just recently here, I've been stacking up the hype and ETH as well, right, in my account. I'm still thinking though, all of these are going to be up so much, I just got to be a bit more patient, that I'm thinking I should probably just get this hype position to $1 million, this ETH position to a few $1 million, because they're 3x. Meaning we can really take this one for a long time because the probability of us getting wrecked on a position like this is quite small. And I'll probably be doing that over the next couple of days. But I think at first, if I am thinking about it, I should probably just open up another ETH bot. The reason I've not done it is because it's up so much. But logically, it's not a stupid idea to just get something trading for ETH. Open just a bot. Matter of fact, next video I'll do that. I'll open up an ETH bot regardless of the price. Even though my earlier one is up 112%, I'll still open a new one right now at 2,900. You might think, Dusty, you're so dumb. Well, I'll just open it, let's say with 25,000 or something like that. If we dip again to like 2,400 or something like that, I'll be doubling it up, right? We'll put another $25,000 in, which again would be another $125,000 trade. And if we dip more, we'll put another 50,000 in. If it dips more, we'll put another $100,000 in. You might think that is crazy. I don't have that much money. Well, then plan accordingly, because I'm thinking I could put a significant amount more all at once, but I just wanted also to be how do you call it? A profit with no stress, right? Again, the moment you start thinking, oh, I'm going to be a hero, I'm going to retire my entire family, that's also where things could go really, really well quickly or really quite bad, right? I could open a $17 million ETH trade right now because it could just be 1.7 million times 10. Or matter of fact, I could do $100,000 times a crazy amount, right? You could. But at that point, it's going to be a whole lot of stress, all right? You're going to be watching that every single second. If you've got that same, let's say, $1 million, right? And it's in a simpler strategy, even though you're going to make less money. If we're talking about, in this case here, right? Let's say we put $1 million in the XRP bot. You would have made way more money had you opened an XRP long. $1 million times 10 in this case, $10 million trade. Well, we made 150% return, so that would be $1.5 million in the last 3 days or so, right? Whereas within this bot, it would have basically been $1 million in the last 60 days. But the nice part is, this was able to go all the way down, right? So let me show you again. All the way down, and I really didn't hate my life too much because we kind of were okay. Whereas if this position I was already down like 80,000 on this before. You might have been down like a couple hundred K, whereas the bot kind of sometimes saves you from that by buying down lower. So it basically minimizes some of the loss while optimizing some of the gains if the volatility is really, really high. On the opposite side, it also minimizes the gain potential if the price does go exponential. So it's a measurement of how you like things. Then again, I will not guarantee you that the price from here is going to go up. I cannot. All I can say is, I personally think that from a historical perspective, it does make sense for the altcoin season to be very near, and that the moment that Bitcoin broke the 110K range now and started making moves with a couple $1,000s, that this is a clear telltale sign that this is here to stay. Now, we might get another few shakeouts where everybody gets tested, and people will then comment again saying, "You see, you buffoon, we have crashed again, you stupid ass." But the way I see it is, still from a risk-reward perspective, it does make sense to bank on an altcoin season here, because even if you're wrong, all you got to be wrong about, or can be wrong about, in my opinion, is the exact date when it starts. I don't think we can really be wrong about the fact that something crazy is about to start in the next 6 months or so. So again, if we can sit through that, all we got to do is just not get wrecked, make sure we don't all in too quickly to make sure we could buy a dip in case something does happen. But again, I'm just explaining this from a logical perspective, that it does make sense for things to start popping off here. Yes, we might get wrecked one or two more few times, but we don't control exactly what happened to the market. All we can control is how we react to it. Logically, Bitcoin has not crashed all the way back down pretty instantly, and almost every single time, right, XRP and some of those coins as well, if they were not gonna continue on, they would have crashed pretty quickly, pretty hard. And the fact that they're able to sustain these current prices leads me to believe it is still worth getting into them. All right, we're not at a peak altcoin season yet. Sure, you might say, Dusty, but realize that you do not realize an altcoin season is in until we've gone about 90 days of crazy gains. All right, many alts need to outperform it first, but usually clear telltale signs of what I just told you. Bitcoin making a pretty exponential move, and most of the altcoins in the list outperforming it for that day, for that little small period. And I can go on for a long time, but I just got to tell you, this is a very, very good moment for us from a risk-reward perspective. And I'm like to take risks. That's about it. That's all I'm going to say. If you really are a person that's quite cautious, right, stay to low leverage, right? 3x, for example, HYPE, 3x ETH. I don't think these can ever get wrecked. I think it's really, really hard for it to do so. And you know what? That's about it for this little crypto update. So, yeah, see you guys again. Another one. Let me know what you're doing. And if you want to join our trade team, well, link is down below. As we're not the best in terms of profit, but at least we've been top 10 here real quick, right? With about 195% gains across the board, across our team, pretty good. But I still want us to end up like last time. Last time we ended at number 2. I still want to get ourselves to the top spot, right? So make sure you join on. That's 𝗏𝗏𝘀𝗀. I'll see you guys again in another video somewhere later today.